Hello, and welcome to Law Talk. My name is John Celebrezze, and I'm the co-founder of the Celebrezze-Zangi Community Legal Education Project, as we call it, CZ-CLEP for short. Our organization provides continuing education about the judiciary and legislature to attorneys, judges, government officials, and the general public. As a career educator, I recognize early on how important legal matters are and how they impact our lives. I am the nephew of the late Anthony J. Celebrezze, who was the popular 5-term mayor of Cleveland and a member of President Kennedy's cabinets. As a tribute to his lifetime commitment to the legal process, we dedicate this show.
Judge Thomas A. Teodosio graduated from the University of Akron with a Bachelor of Arts degree in 1979. Thereafter, he received a Juris Doctorate degree from the University of Akron School of Law in 1982. In November 2006, Judge Teodosio was elected Summit County's Common Pleas Court Judge. He was elected to serve the court's presiding judge for the years 2010, 11, 12, and 15. In 2016, he served as the court's administrative judge. Judge Teodosio presided over Summit County's felony drug court program known as the Turning Point Program. The program is a separate specialized docket in which nonviolent drug-dependent offenders plead guilty to their offenses and then are provided intense court-supervised treatment. Judge Teodosio served on Common Pleas Court until February of 2017 when he began his term as judge on the 9th District Court of Appeals. Let's join John and his special guest.
Judge, welcome to Law Talk.
Well, thanks for having me.
Well, it's our pleasure. I was reading over your your accomplishments, if you will, and I know our reporter Kate Feeks has been talking to you, and she always does a little research on my guest, and it just amazes me that you managed to get so much done in such a short period of time. But
well, I like to be involved. So.
Well, I don't think there's any question about that whatsoever, Judge, and we are just thrilled to have you here today. You know, we've been doing the show for a number of years, and I have interviewed a lot of judges, and I know you've held judicial positions, other judicial positions, but I think the one court, should I say, that sometimes I don't think my readers totally comprehend what happens is the appellant level, what you do.
Sure.
And I think there's probably a lot of reasons for that. You don't get very much publicity. You actually sort of ride the circuit, don't you? You go to different counties?
We do. 9th District, of course, is Lorain County, Wayne County, Summit County, and Medina County. And we sit in all 4 of those districts.
Yeah, I practice in Judge Kimbler's court over in Medina, and my office is over in Medina. And I'll see you periodically. You'll
Great.
Usually every now and then you and your colleagues will occupy all the 3 chairs in there. So, well, that's great. But I guess getting back to my thought there, I think it's a very important court, obviously, but I do think it's the court that a lot of people don't know about.
Not many TV shows feature the Court of Appeals.
But for those of us that practice law, a guy like me, the decisions you make are of vital importance because there's our stare decisis, there's our precedent for our district, which, as you mentioned, takes in. So I guess I'm going to kind of buzz around here on some of the questions, if you don't mind, that we put together for you. But just a human interest thing, I'm just curious, what inspired you to be a judge?
Well, I was in private practice for 25 years, and back in those days, you would have lunch with the judges, and I would have lunch with a lot of the older attorneys and the judges, so I got to know quite a few of them well, and listening to them talk about the job and following their careers. When Judge Bond finally retired, it was an opportunity that I had. It was a tough decision because I came from a smaller firm, which is like a family, as you know.
Sure.
But it was always something that I wanted to do. And I thought, the opportunity is there. If I don't take advantage of it, will I ever get another opportunity? Yeah. So I made that decision to run, and it was one of the better decisions I made in my life.
Yeah. Well, that's when you ran for the Common Pleas bench there in Summit County, correct?
That's correct.
That was your first judicial seat.
But not my first race, because I had served 6 years.
Served on the council.
On Summit County Council, that's
But actually
correct.
You were president of the council at one point in time, weren't you?
Yes, I was.
Okay, so, of course, in Cuyahoga, the concept of the council is newer than Summit, but actually even the concept in Summit is somewhat unique. But you were first elected to the council in what year, Judge?
2000 I was
Okay.
first elected.
Did you serve 2 terms on the council?
I was re-elected. They're 4-year terms, so I was re-elected during the second year of my second term.
I see.
The opening became available, and that's when I ran for the Common Court judge.
I see. Okay. Of all your experiences, and it's fun to read your resume of all the different things you've done, judges. Of all your experience, what do you think best prepared you for the position that you have now?
I would say those 25 years practicing
practicing
law.
law?
Yeah. You
Yeah.
know, I was thinking after I started on the Court of Appeals, it was much like going back into private practice where you're researching and writing
Sure.
a lot, and you're at the desk much more. You know, Common Pleas Court, you're so busy
Yeah,
on
I
the
know.
bench all the time that I think those 25 years have served me well. And I had a general practice, so I did a lot of criminal work, civil work.
I see.
All of that has proven very helpful. I think it's a good way to go in becoming a judge, to have that
background.
groundwork.
25 years you practiced. It was actually your firm, wasn't it, Teodosio? And-
It
but
was.
You had a couple of partners?
Yes, Teodosio, Chirpus, Manos, and Ward. Now, my father was an attorney in Akron, and
I see.
he started that firm.
Okay.
And then, you know, I eventually earned a partnership there.
Yeah, I understand about the family business. I kind of went that route myself. Okay, well, we're glad you're there. Just in passing here, and we'll dig in a little bit. We have some mutual friends. We were talking about Judge Routson over in Hancock County. Judge Routson started out as a municipal court judge, and then he eventually got to Common Pleas, and I'm sure you two know each other.
Yes,
but
good judge.
It's pretty obvious watching his career, you know, just how intense and how busy, and even more so when he was municipal court judge. I mean, it was just a constant, I don't know how many cases he handled. So when you say that you moved into the Court of Appeals, that obviously does give you an opportunity to sit back, reflect, and look what the law really says, where I think, you know, pretty busy place when you're sitting on that Common Pleas bench. So
Absolutely. I compared it once to the difference between baseball and golf. You know, when you're at the plate and you have fastballs being fired at you, as opposed to the Court of Appeals, you can deliberate a little
you
bit
got to
longer.
think about it a little bit, but
Right.
well, I think that's a pretty good analogy, actually. I'm going to remember that one. Okay, shifting gears, we're going to jump into Court of Appeals here in a minute, but I think this is worth, I don't know if you want to call it a little commercial. I mean, whatever. I'm quite the believer. I have a concern as a practicing attorney, almost all of my colleagues are, of the heroin epidemic that, and I'm sure you're still dealing with it in some of your cases, and on maybe the appellate level, but obviously in a Common Pleas. But you were very involved in presiding over something called the Turning Point Program. And I understand I invited you here to talk about the Court of Appeals, and we will, but if you would share with my viewers a little bit what that program does, because I think it's an excellent program.
Absolutely. It's Turning Point program is the Summit County's felony drug court. Now, I thought that had a bad stigma to it, felony drug court, so I renamed that court the Turning Point program. And I have to tell you, John, out of my entire career, that has been the most rewarding thing I've ever done. To see families reunited, to see people come from the lowest point in their lives to actually being productive. There is hope for heroin addicts. Oftentimes we see death associated with that drug, but it's a program where we address mental health issues as well as substance abuse issues, which is extremely important because most of these folks do have a co-occurring disorder. And we provide them with the resources by collaborating with various resources throughout the community to recover. Now, it's much stricter than any other probationary type program. They appear before the judge on a weekly basis, and I'm going to monitor if they're doing well or not. And if they don't follow any of the rules, there's an immediate sanction.
I see.
On the other side, when they do well, it's equally important to have praise from the bench, judicial praise, or some sort of reward system.
Sure.
Could be applause from the people in the audience. It could be a gift certificate. And it's so difficult for them to beat that addiction. So you have to understand the disease, and it is a disease. You have to understand recovery, and be patient. The end reward, though, is just amazing. And we had people from not only Summit County, but the adjoining counties as well. So Medina County folks were involved.
That's how I knew about
County
it.
folks were involved as well.
Well, you know, Judge, and again, we'll dig into the Court of Appeals, but I mean, I just want to, frankly, I want to recognize and thank you. I don't know what the percent of my practice is now of dealing with heroin, but it's actually scary as to the number of clients I have, and I'm just one lawyer that practices part-time. And you're right, I mean, as I get to know my clients, it's an addiction that is very, I mean, I just don't think people understand how hard it is to break. But I want to leave my viewers with this thought, and you and other judges are doing this. You as a judge, as you sat on Turning Point, you sat on your bench, you interacted with people. I mean, you weren't just hitting your gavel and sending them to prison. You involved yourselves in their lives, and you said applause or you did something good or whatever. I think my viewers should understand that this takes an enormous amount of time. I mean, and you and several other judges, Judge Kimbler there in Medina is doing exactly the same thing. And those of us who try cases, we know you hit Wednesday, you're going to get a furlough that day because don't call your witnesses, because she's going to be on the bench, and she will be there, and I'm sure you were too, for several hours.
My mornings would usually start at 8:30, and I would not even have lunch. I'd go right till 1 o'clock when I would start my call day, which you know is the busiest day of the week for most judges.
But I think the fact that a judge, I just can't say enough that you know, you would involve yourself in their life. And I've seen this in various courtrooms where you'll call somebody by their first name and say, you know, we missed you last week or something. This is a tough situation, this whole opiate epidemic. And I laud you for doing that. Okay, I better shift gears. What are some of your responsibilities, Judge, as an appellant judge?
Well, you know, the appellate courts are very important courts. As you say, we set precedent for 4 counties. And we are, I call the working man Supreme Court. Most people don't get their cases beyond the Court of Appeals. Next highest level, of course, is the Supreme Court.
Sure.
And you don't have an appeal as of right to that court.
But you do, and
you do to the level that I'm at.
So I mean, anybody who would go through the trial court, I'm not happy with the result, whether it be the state or the other, they do have a guaranteed right to an appeal in your court?
Yes, they do. Any lower court decision that a party disagrees with could appeal to the 9th District Court of Appeals in those 4 counties.
Well, that does make sense the way you described it then, because not everybody gets to go to the Supreme Court. They'll select the cases, I guess, to some degree.
Absolutely.
But you got to do them all. Anybody who appeals, as long as they get that in within 30-day period or whatever it is.
And they meet the other jurisdictional requirements. Yes, it's a busy court. And there's a lot of reading, there's a lot of research. We have the benefit, though, unlike the trial courts, of not only having the issues briefed, but we hear arguments from both sides, and then we could really delve into the legal issues. We want to make sure we're correct on the law and correct on the facts, because that's going to have an impact on 4 counties, the law in 4 counties.
So when I see you in the Medina court with 2 of your colleagues, they refer to this as a panel. There's 3 of you.
Correct.
When you actually come to a decision, though, Judge, I don't know, I've been a lawyer for a while. You put 3 lawyers, and I imagine the same thing with judges in the room, and there's probably a real good chance you're not going to get a consensus. So is it majority rules?
Well, sometimes you do have a consensus, sometimes you don't. When we get done hearing the cases, the 3 judges on that panel meet, discuss the case, share ideas, share which issues we think are important, and then you have an opportunity either to write a separate opinion. Let's say the case was assigned to me to write and somebody agrees but wants to expound a little bit.
Sure.
They can write what is known as a concurring opinion. Or if one of the judges disagrees with the outcome. They have the opportunity to write a dissent, which would set forth the reasons why they respectfully disagree with the court's decision.
But I guess at the end of the day, though, of the three of you, if somebody's going to prevail in his or her appeal, he's going to have to get at least two of you on board, right?
Correct.
Okay. All right. Okay. So that said, this process is a process. From the time one would file an appeal, Judge, within 30 or 60 days or whatever after the trial, well, let's just say the trial ends, the attorney says, Your Honor, my client wants to appeal. About how long would the cycle take, approximately?
I think 6 months is a good time frame, but it depends on how many assignments there are. If it's a very difficult issue that you need more time on, but the goal is to get them done in 6 months.
About 6 months, okay.
From the time the appeal is filed now.
Okay,
so.
and that could be, transcripts have to be...
Right.
So.
You have to file your appeal typically within 30 days, but the record has to be prepared, and that could take some time.
And see, that's the part that, I've had your colleagues on the show, and I always sort of pause right here. Unlike the days when you sat on that bench and you heard that witness, Mr. Jones, your bailiff swore him in and you were about as far away from him. You heard everything. You could even ask him questions if you wanted, I guess.
Sure you could, as a trial court judge.
As a trial court. You can't do that anymore now. So you're just going to have to read this from a transcript.
Yes.
Okay, and albeit you spent enough time of your life in courts to probably get a pretty good feel, you still weren't there though. There's two sides to every story. So you're reading pages and pages of transcript. You're looking for somebody's witness statement who said something, maybe conflicts with somebody else. This is an important part that I think people don't quite understand. I think they think sometimes that it's about the same routine as when you were a trial judge, but it's not.
Absolutely not. Yeah.
It's pretty much all on paper.
And the arguments of counsel.
Let's go to that. Okay, the lawyers do have the opportunity to actually get in front of you for oral arguments.
Yes.
And that's one of the reasons that, as I say, you and your colleagues ride the circuit.
Correct.
So when I see you in Medina, you and your colleagues are going to probably hear from at least two of my colleagues who are going to get in front of you and try to make their case, right?
That's correct.
Okay.
I was in Wayne County this morning.
All right, but it's not only just one case. Sometimes I see you there almost all day or a half a day.
Right, we schedule six cases.
Okay.
Every time we sit. And then out of the 3 judges, we'll each be assigned 2 to be the writing judge.
I see. Okay. All right. Well,
And really what we're doing there is looking for error in the courts below. So I like to call us a court of error correction because that's what we're looking for. Was there something done down below?
And if something was done down below that maybe grants an individual the right to have another trial, you'll send it back.
We would send it back.
Or in the alternative, if the 3 of you are two of the 3 of you are of the consensus, looks like everything was done right, then you'll affirm the decision.
Then we would affirm that decision, correct.
And by the way, this can go both ways. I'm a defense attorney, and I've had several cases of appeals before them that my client wasn't satisfied with the result, so we took it up on appeal. Mm-hmm. But prosecutors do this too, right?
Oh, yes.
The other side.
Yes.
I won, but the prosecutor said, I don't think so. It
much limited basis they do, but yes, they do have an opportunity on certain issues to appeal.
Okay. All right. So, as a judge in the 9th District Court of Appeals, and briefly, what are some of the kinds of cases you handle?
Well, I think this is, again, where my background as a lawyer comes into very good play, because you can hear any kind of case from any lower court. So it might come out of municipal court, it might come out of a mayor's court, it may come out of a common pleas court. Now, don't forget the common pleas court has a domestic relations division, so it might be a case involving a divorce or a separation, probate, criminal, civil.
Can a juvenile court case find its way?
Juvenile court cases are also can be appealed to this court. Of course, I have to recuse on those out of Summit County because of my wife, Linda, being the juvenile court judge, but I can still hear those out of the other 3 counties.
So in a typical day, and correct me if I'm getting too far afield, you and your colleagues could hear 3 lawyers or two lawyers trying to convince you that, look, judges, that kid broke the windshield on that car, but there were reasons for it. Now, lawyers aren't going to go into the specific facts, but they're going to be reminding you there's course precedent. He shouldn't have got that punishment. That's true?
Right, or that might be the evidence, the manifest weight of the evidence
Sure, okay.
does not support the conviction,
Right.
or there was an insufficient amount of evidence.
But not to make light of what a kid would do breaking windshield. In my other life, Judge, I used to be a high school principal, so I used to deal a lot with this sort of thing.
Okay.
All right, but then those 2 lawyers step back, they're done, the 3 of you say, well, we'll take that under consideration, which you will. The next guy that could come up could be a murder trial, though, right?
That's absolutely correct.
So within a half hour, you heard issues about breaking a car windshield, which I suppose the guy who owned the car, that's important to him. But the next guy might be even a little more important, that's his life.
Mm-hmm. And the next case may involve a dispute over the amount of child support that was ordered, or custody of a child that was
Well, you're
granted.
probably well prepared for this, having sat on the trial court bench, because that's what you did. I mean,
Sure.
even though you did civil and criminal, but over in the Akron, there was like your wife, she's juvenile court, right?
That's correct.
Okay, and then you have a probate court.
And we have a domestic relations.
So when you sat on the bench, you heard criminal, obviously.
Criminal and civil.
And civil. I mean, people sue. Okay. Did you have magistrate as well, or?
The court as a whole did.
I see.
I did not personally.
Okay. So actually, in some ways, this new job is even giving you more diversification.
Yes.
Yeah. Even though 25 years in practice, I'm sure you ran into most of this.
Right. I had a general practice, so I practiced in all these areas.
Pretty interesting job, though. I mean, I think, like I said, I sort of emphasize every time I get an appellant judge, I do this. That number one, I don't think people really understand quite as much as maybe they ought to. And 2, I think they see it more as just paperwork. Mm-hmm. I mean, more of a paperwork type job. But that's really not the case, is it? I mean,
not really. I mean,
you're still going to hear, albeit you're not making the decision as a trial judge, but what you decide could have a big impact on the next guy that comes through with that type of a case.
And that's called precedent. That's correct.
Stare decisis, yeah. Well, it sounds like a pretty interesting job. I mean, you took the bench, the new job you got right now. When did you?
In February of this year.
Yeah, I know it hasn't been very long, so I mean, this might not be a real fair question to ask you about the job, but whatever. I mean, what do you enjoy most about it?
I think I enjoy the diversity of the issues that come before us. They're just very interesting issues.
Well, it's pretty obvious you're enjoying it, just by talking to you. I mean, you're excited about it. Right?
And the time you have to delve into the issues that you didn't really have as much time as a trial court judge. As a trial court judge, you're making quick decisions. Yeah. It's just a fascinating job, and the flexibility that it provides as well.
I appreciate the fact, Judge, that you were the guy on the bench wearing the robe, making the calls. But I'll also tell you, and you were a lawyer yourself, you're never going to make us happy down there. It's just, Judge, why is it taking you so long to rule on that, even though you come to find out there's probably good reasons for it. But
well, we want to make sure we get it right, and if it's going to take a little bit extra time, we're going to take it.
Well, it's our precedent. I mean, anybody in the legal community knows that when you're researching, if you have a Medina case or a Summit County case, you need to look to the 9th District. That's where you go first.
Right.
And then, if you're not finding there, then you start looking to the Supreme Court. On the subject of the Supreme Court, we talked earlier, I mean, everybody gets a shot at an appeal at your court. But as far as your qualifications to be a judge on the Court of Appeals, if you were a Supreme Court justice, there's 7 of them, correct? In the state of Ohio?
I believe there was 8.
Okay.
Right around there.
I'll try to take your word for it.
I used to know that. But
well, I probably should have known. My cousin was Chief Justice at one time or another, but I didn't know either. So that doesn't make any difference. But there's a small select group, but that is the Supreme Court. There are panels of appellate judges at
12 districts.
12 districts, okay. And in your court, how many total?
We have 5 judges in our 9th district.
Okay. Okay, in the short time we have, though, to become a Supreme Court justice, you have to run statewide. You had to run in the four counties.
Right.
All right, but is there any, I mean, to be a Supreme Court justice, do they have different background, education, anything different than what you have?
No, they're just like any other judge that runs, quite frankly.
Okay.
It's just that they are campaigning statewide, which is
sure.
Very complicated.
But I think it's a fair point to make, because even if you were a municipal court judge, common pleas, or Supreme Court justice, you got to practice for, I think, 6 years.
6 years.
And you have to have a law degree.
And you have to convince the voters that you're the person to vote for.
And at the municipal level, you're doing it in a city, and the appellate level, you're doing it in several counties. And for the Supreme Court of Ohio, you've got to do the whole state of Ohio.
Whole state of Ohio, and for a common pleas court, it's just in that particular county.
Well, Judge, I see our time is running out, and you see how quickly it went by. So I want to leave you with this. You are always welcome to come back here. I know you're a man with a lot of innovative ideas, and it won't surprise me that comes out in your new job. If you ever have something you think would be interested in my viewers, please contact me, and we'll have you back on Law Talk.
Great.
Anytime you want to come back. I mean, we were just tickled to have you here today. We wish you the very best with your new job. It sounds to me like you're pretty well immersed in it at this point in time, and I imagine those 6 years are going to be flying by. But once again, I want you to know that the invitation is open. And I would like to editorialize just a little bit. The Turning Point program is one outstanding program,
Yeah.
sir. And I mean,
Well, we can spend hours talking about that program,
but I
want to thank you for the invitation and for the education that this program provides to the community. I think that's important as well, so thank you for your service there.
You're welcome, Your Honor.
Comments made by John's guest on Law Talk are solely those of his guest and do not necessarily reflect the views of Celebrezze Zangi Community Legal Education Project. To view this show and others, go to www.czclep.org. In the Wadsworth area, a complete listing of dates and times of this broadcast, tune in to WCTV Channel 15 or log on to wadsworthcity.com and follow the links to WCTV. At CZ we're devoted to the education of today's legal issues. Fueled by the public's keen interest in our legal system and current events, CZ is dedicated to the educational venues aimed at enhancing the understanding by all citizens, regardless of age, education, occupation, or wealth. A function of the Celebrezze Zangi Community Legal Education Project.